Yo, what is up, vibers? Welcome to this beginner's guide on Elluna. My goal for this video is to take you from no knowledge of this hunter to being able to play her at somewhat of a decent level your very first time. And we're going to do that by talking through her abilities and their synergy with each other, taking a look at some potential equipment options, as well as some powers. The coolest thing about this character is I can whip my hair back and forth, whip my hair back and forth. Just kidding. Now, Elluna is a very unique character. She's one of these characters where a huge amount of like the value you can add is through your positioning and your ability to like reset fights. And so of all the hunters in the game, she's probably the most focused on like rezzing, essentially like not even necessarily like healing to keep her team alive, which she can do a bit of, but even more than that, sort of like resurrecting to reset fights, as well as having really good mobility to be able to peel out of fights and go for that team res if stuff's looking south. And she's another one of these hunters where on the surface, the kit seems pretty simple, kind of like Ghost. But once you sort of realize how you can use all this stuff, and especially in combination, and the bit of Schmovement Tech she has, the gameplay ends up being like a lot deeper than what is kind of like shown on the surface here through the tooltips. Alright, starting out with Elluna's RMB Crescent Bolt. Fire a shot that restores mana and deals ramping damage. After not firing for a brief time, your next shot is empowered. So let's look at what that actually means. Fire a shot with low base damage that scales off ability power. Hits apply Moonburn to the target. Hitting a target affected by Moonburn deals bonus damage and returns mana. Stacks up to 5 times. So if we look, if I'm shooting strike here, my first shot's 92, my next shot's 111, my next shot's 130, my next shot's 149, 167, 186, and it's going to stop at 186. So that's basically when I have 5 Moonburn stacks. So there's like 6 levels of damage you do with your auto. Basically, it's like no Moonburn stacks, 1 Moonburn stack, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then you're capped out here. And we can see the duration on this. Like if I shoot her, unfortunately, like unlike Shiv, there's not really like a visual that I can tell on how long it lasts. And so we'll look right here. And so we can see that one goes through, but if we wait just a little bit longer, it doesn't. So it's probably like, you probably have to hit them within maybe, let's call it 2 seconds in order to get that big one to come through. And you'll see when you do get it to come through, it'll show up as like the yellow instead of the white, right? And so as long as you're hitting, you know, within like a 2-second window on the same target, you're going to get this like ramping damage. And you can like think of it similar to the way Shiv's passive works, where like it stacks on a target, and if you switch targets, you're gonna have to like build it back up again, and then if you don't get a hit on them for 2 seconds, it's gonna fall off and you're gonna have to like restart it, right? All these hits are also giving you mana back. We can see it's a pretty good amount actually. So a really important thing to keep in mind with her auto, guys, is it penetrates. It pens. So like if you, just like Zeph's auto, if you get the charge on it, it's gonna basically go through everything, you know, that's within range. So understanding now how Moonburn stacks, we're basically in fights, if we have the positioning to do it, constantly trying to like pen through multiple targets. And that's not always going to be possible because sometimes we're going to be wanting to play a little bit back. But I think in general, you shouldn't be afraid to play Elluna aggressively. I think she's a support character like by design, but in this game, support characters can be played incredibly offensively with great success and still do a lot of their support stuff. Now, I'm not saying like Elluna has insane damage and is going to be like really strong in 1v1s or anything like that. She probably has some of the lowest like overall DPS in the game. However, she can be like so kind of shifty and crafty, especially like baiting people out over the abyss for the spike and being creative with her movement and her powers. She wins more off of like her movement, her strategy, and her brain than she does like her raw power, right? So if we are in a team fight where we're not in the mix, the second part of our LMB is this empowered thing. And this is a little deceptive because generally empowered means it's going to do more damage. But in this case, what empowered means is we just get a little more range and double the mana return. And so see this little like blue bar down to the left by Crescent Bolt? See if I shoot, it'll like charge back up after a second. That's showing the empowered shot. So you can see also in my aiming laser, see how when I shoot, it comes short and then it'll extend back out after like that second. So you want to get used to this timing as well. And this is basically like your poke timing, where as soon as that thing is full, you're shooting again. And this is going to give you that little bit of extra range for poking, right? But the biggest thing it does is it's giving you double mana. So this is like your poke, like mana snipe rhythm. And it's like pretty good range, like especially in comparison to other characters. So you want to sort of practice the timing of this LMB charging up. And we can see it charges fast enough to where we can still get our Moonburn stacks in at max range. I think in general, you want to think about this more as like your snipe for especially like spiking people as well as poking in team fights, and mainly like getting mana back. So if you're looking to, it's like your mana snipe. So you're using it to poke a bit, but the big thing it's doing is just like refilling a ton of your mana. Like we can see if I'm basically completely and I hit like multiple of these in a row. Like look at my mana. Comes back fast. So this is like, think of this as like your poke, like mana snipe. Your highest DPS, however, is going to be just pumping as fast as you can because they're the same damage. We noticed when I was max Moonburn stacks with the other one, I was hitting for 186. When I'm spamming it, I'm also hitting for 186. And you can actually just hold this down, and that's going to like fire it at max speed. I don't necessarily recommend this. I don't usually hold it down, but if you know you like that, I think it makes it like a little harder to aim precisely. But if you like, you know, the way it feels holding it down, definitely an option. So from there, guys, we're going to go right into the dash because I think the dash is like such an important part of Elluna's kit, and learning how to leverage it to its full capacity is like really important to like trying to play her at a high level. So just like several other champions, we basically have our normal left shift, and then on a separate cooldown, if we do it while we're airborne, we have an air dash basically. And we can see these are on independent cooldowns, and like with the level 3 in the ability, but without any ability haste through items or anything, like the ground one's at a 4.5 second cooldown, the air dash is at a 10-second cooldown. And we notice the air dash takes like almost like triple the mana. So like 12.5 up to like 36 mana. So that's something, you know, else just to like keep in mind. But the biggest thing with the dash is learning the timing of like the Schmovement on the ground dash. And so it's very similar to Ghost's dash, where basically if you know, just like dash on the ground, you're not going to go very far, but it's a fairly short cooldown. What you can do is essentially jump at the end of that ground dash and carry the momentum of the dash forward through the air and accomplish like much more distance out of the normal ground dash. And Elluna, and that was like a bad example. Elluna is a little bit like harder to do it on than Ghost. Like you have to be a little more precise with the timing. So I'm going to dodge like right at this little line here, right? So I'm coming, that's a regular ground dash. Here's like a scuffed ground dash where I do it too early. And here's like a perfect one where we get max distance. And, you know, I just tried that like 5 times to show you guys this clip, just because like the timing is quite a bit, like you need to be more precise with it. And it's a little bit like longer after you dash. You can see if I dash jump too soon, it's going to kind of cut off the momentum. So you want to wait like just a split second longer than it feels like you should for the jump. And that's going to give you that extra, you know, couple feet at the end there. So without any ability haste, and just taking dash to level 3, we can achieve very good distance out of our dash on a very short cooldown. And so we want to constantly be practicing this like momentum from our ground dash, and we want to constantly be like moving and using positioning to our advantage. Now, if we look at the advanced tooltip on Lunar Dash, dashing through allies refunds half of this ability's cooldown and 1 second of Moonlight's Blessing, which is our Q we're about to get to. So if dashing through one ally refunds half the ability's cooldown, what that means is if we dash through 2 allies at once, it's going to be instantly back up. And if it's already on a 4.5 second cooldown by default, dashing through an ally is going to bring this to like a 2-second cooldown. And once we have ability haste, it's going to be even lower than that. So not only constantly like practicing the momentum off of the dash, but also constantly looking to dash through allies. And especially if we're looking for like an entry with the Moonbeam, imagine my allies are like in front of me. If I get good at using the ground dash as my entry to set up the route, I now still have my air dash to get way out and sort of reset if I need to, right? So imagine there's like a team fight breaking out and my allies are in front of me right here. If I'm looking for a good entry or engage for my team, I can like ground dash through them, jump, and get a good Q through for like an engage. But I still, if I dash through an ally, my ground shift will be basically immediately back up so I can try to get out. And this whole time, I still have my air dash available to like really get out. And the dashing through allies is going to work on both the ground dash and the air dash. So we've talked a lot about the ground dash. Let's look at the air dash now. This air dash has like literally the most momentum, I think, out of any dash in the game. We can see if I'm like not even moving and I just like jump shift, like look how far we go with like just pressing shift. So there's like a ton of momentum behind it, and there's like so much momentum behind it, in fact, where like a lot of other hunters, you can like catch the momentum from their shift into their glide, and usually if you do it immediately, you're gonna get like the most value because it catches the most momentum. But the momentum on Elluna's air dash is like so strong that we're actually going to lose distance if we glide her right away. So the best way to like schmoove with the air dash is jump, air dash, and then like glide, you know, so deeper at the end of the dash, because you have similar momentum at the end of the dash than you do at the very beginning. So you're gonna get like the most distance out of the air dash if you like air dash and wait like a second and then glide, because you're still basically carrying like the same momentum as the beginning part of the dash into your glider, but you're getting like a full extra second of that momentum just like launching you forward, right? So looking at both of our dashes, we really want to think about our ground dash as like our combat dash, and using that in fights, like moving through allies, and it's on such a short cooldown, and we can get such good distance out of it once you get good at the jump, that this is basically like your, you know, combat dash and like engage dash, and the air dash is your like get the hell out of there dash. And so we were talking at the beginning about how Elluna is unique and that she's really good at like resetting fights and peeling. That's one of the things that makes her so good at it, is the fact that you have a ground dash on a really short cooldown, and if you're doing it through allies, it's like even shorter, and you can basically save your air dash for when, you know, stuff's going down, and if you need to bail or get somewhere really fast, you know, fights happening, and then you're just instantly like way out of there, you know? All right, and we're actually going to talk more about the dashes when we look at these other abilities, because they kind of like synergize into all of them. So let's talk about her passive, because her passive is also like intricately linked to her dash. So this used to be called Backpack. I'm so glad it's called Soulpack now. Run across a knocked ally wisp to pick them up and carry them with you. You cannot pick up allies being stomped. So if an ally is down in wisp form, as Elluna, you can literally grab them. That's their passive. Like other hunters, you just have to stand on them to res them. Elluna can actually grab the wisp and carry it with her. When you do that, it's going to slow us by 20%, so keep that in mind. There is a bit of a movement slow on it. However, that's not going to slow the momentum of your dash. That's just going to slow like you moving on the ground. So if you do scoop an ally and you're using your dashes to get them away, you know, that 20% isn't really going to come into effect as much. So this first part, you cannot pick up allies being stomped, meaning if there's an enemy on an ally, like I can't pick the wisp up unless that person gets off of them. So taking a look at this second part, gain a health shield based on level, which refills each time you pick up an ally. So you can pick up multiple allies with this guy. So like if you pick up one ally, it's going to give you this health shield. Basically, every time you grab a wisp, it's going to like refresh this shield. So it's like not going to stack on itself, but like if you grab a wisp and like your shield's about to run out because you're getting shot at, if you grab another wisp, it's going to like re-pop it back up to full. Now, the most important thing to know about Soulpack is if this shield breaks, this health shield you get when you scoop them, or if you're crowd controlled in any way while holding a wisp with a shield, you are going to be stunned, drop your ally, and cannot pick them back up for 4 seconds. So basically what this means is like using her backpack passive, if we do scoop someone, we essentially need to not get hit. We need to use this tiny shield to get out or get that ally to like a safe position. If that shield gets broken, we're going to get stunned and drop them, and we're not going to be able to pick them back up. So as soon as you scoop a wisp, you're basically like vulnerable. Like think of yourself as like you're eating, like you're vulnerable. Because if anyone hits you for any significant amount of damage, like more than 400, you're going to get stunned and you're going to drop your ally and you're not going to be able to grab them anymore. So as soon as you grab a wisp, you're basically looking to peel. So you're using your ground dash, not like that. You're using your ground dash, you know, the good way with the good jump at the end to get them out. And one of the best times to use your air dash is like right after you grab an allied wisp. We were talking about it earlier. And ally goes down up here is in wisp form. We can ground dash up forward, grab them, and then instantly jump air dash out and just be like way out of there. And like we were talking about, when you're dashing, this thing at the bottom being slowed by 20% doesn't come into effect. Like the momentum of your dash is not slowed by 20%. So when you're holding a wisp, the more you can use your dashes, the more you'll be at like your normal sort of movement speed, because you're not going to be experiencing that slow, right? And remember, if we do that same exact thing with like allies in front of us, like let's say we have an ally in front of us and another ally that's a wisp up here. If we dash through this first ally on the ground and do our jump and grab the wisp, because we dash through an ally, it's likely that our ground dash is going to be right back up and we can just ground dash out and still have our air dash up. So your air dash, like think of your air dash as literally like your peace mode. Like your air dash is literally like your fight resetter, like your insane ability to keep your team alive when they all die. Is super tied to like the momentum and distance you can get out of the air dash. That's the other thing I forgot to mention about the air dash, guys. If you're not gliding with it, we basically want to bunny hop the end. So if we hit jump right when we're hitting the ground, look at how much extra distance I got out of that air dash. So we can see Little B hop at the end. The other thing about the 20% slow is it's not going to slow down our gliding either. So if we do scoop a whisk for our soul pack and we get out of there with an air dash, we can do the schmovement we were talking about where we wait a sec and then glide it out. And if there's no abyss around and you're just air dashing over ground, you want to do the B hop we talked about earlier. So you scoop your ally, big air dash out, and then B hop the end. And that's going to give you that extra bit of distance without experiencing this 20% move slow because you're carrying the momentum of your long dash into a jump, and that is not affected by your movement speed. So if we look at the other two main abilities in our kit besides our dash and our ult, we basically have an offensive circle and a defensive circle. So let's take a look at the offensive circle first, Darkside Binding, which is our RMB. So fire a shot that roots and damages in an AoE after a short delay. If we look at the advanced tooltip, we fire a slow moving shot that looks like this. It's actually not that slow moving, it's kind of slow to charge. And it's going to deal this little bit of damage to the first enemy it hits. After a 2-second delay after you hit a target, the target and enemies around it in the circle area are going to take a lot more damage and are going to be rooted for a 1.5 seconds. And this is also going to apply Moonburn. And this also has a pretty long range. It's the same range as like our empowered shot. So keep that in mind as we do have good range on it. But what this looks like is basically this projectile that takes a sec to charge, and then we shoot it. It's pretty fast to shoot. And then it'll attach to a target. And after that 1.5 seconds, it will proc basically and root everything in that circle. And like if we look at the timing of it, there's about like a second on the charge up, right? And then it shoots pretty fast. And then this moon above them is like showing the duration of the circle till it like procs the root. And this is actually like a really strong ability, like deceptively strong, because basically if you catch someone with it and your team is aware that you landed it, your team has like sort of like 2 full seconds, and so do you, to like see where that person's going to be going and look to like blow them up as soon as that root procs. So instead of being like instant CC where like you stun someone and if your team's not ready, like they might not be able to follow up in time before the stun wears off, right? This is like delayed CC. So it's even like a little more powerful in certain situations because if you land it, you can be like, kill strike, and everyone's going to like turn and see her like right as she's getting rooted. And that's going to basically guarantee the abilities from like the rest of your team. And that should be like, as long as your team is following up when you hit an RMB, like that should be an easy kill a lot of the times unless the enemy team does something to counter it. So Elluna not only has like really good support potential, but she also has like really good kill engage potential. And there's like a really good video that sort of like describes this idea of 2 bunnies inside of you by Major Pleasure that I watched the other day. And it's like really good and just like hilarious. Like somehow he's able to make useful videos that are like super funny at the same time. I'm gonna link that in the comments. But basically, when the evil demon bunny inside of you is in charge, you're gonna be looking for these offensive engages, and this root is a huge part of it. So the thing that makes this like most difficult to land is this early charge at the beginning, this like second that you have before you shoot it. And the big reason why is because it slows you. Like look at how much it slows my movement speed. 460 down to 276, so like 200 move speed loss pretty much. And it's like close to like a full second. So basically what we want to try to do is like override that slow using our Schmovement. So this dash jump we've been talking about, basically what we can do is as soon as we hit the jump, we can start that charge. And that's going to basically like give us the ability to close the gap, catch our enemies off guard, like make the angle for hitting the ability easier. And basically, as soon as like enemies realize we're going to shoot it, we're already shooting it because we kind of like came in from nowhere, charging it up while we're like in the air moving toward them. And by the time we're like really close to them, it's like about to fire. And so using the ground dash for the engage like this, and that was like a bad example of the ground dash. You know, I got like a little less distance than I could. But basically, if we proc that, like while we're airborne, riding the momentum of our dash, it's going to really lessen the feeling of that movement slow that's coming into effect when we just like press it on the ground. So in general, like we were talking about, like you're going to want to try to use your ground dash for the engage if you can. And especially if you have an ally in front of you, like we talked about, the dash, jump, shoot with the RMB is like a really good engage tool. And if you do that, not only are you going to still have your massive air dash up to like peel instantly if you need to, you're also going to almost instantly have your ground dash back up. So a lot of the times if you dash through allies to land this route, you can just ground dash right back out and still have the air dash up. And so we go in, get a nice route, and like if I had an ally there, that would have been instantly back up when I turned right there because it would have taken 2 seconds off of it. like 2.25 seconds off it. And remember, all these cooldowns are going to be even lower when we start building ability haste in our items. But basically, right after I land that root, I can like literally ground dash out again and be in a good position to, you know, be pumping and like supporting my team. And the other way you can use it is just like to instantly follow again. So same exact thing. I dash through my allies, jump, get the root. If she's trying to peel, my ground dash is going to be up like almost instantly again to where I can basically do it again and stay right on top of her and just be pumping her with autos the whole time. So basically, when you land your root, like as soon as you think you're going to land it, you're just shredding with your autos, right? So you get the jump shot, you land the root, and you're just pumping and you're building moonburn stacks. And when that root goes off, like a lot of times, like especially if the enemy's already missing some health, you do have the power to just kill on your own if you're pumping autos the whole time the root's like lining up, and then when it procs, like you do have the power a lot of the time, especially if you're building full AP, to just kill someone, especially if they're not like a tank character. And the other little thing is you're going to get one extra stack of moonburn as soon as this pops. So it pops and I get that like bonus stack of moonburn right off the bat from it. So then the ultra super aggro way to use the root is like using it with your air dash. And so if you do the same idea but you air dash it in, you can just kind of like come off screen and have a root like pre-casted, like ready to shoot, like right when you get on top of someone. So the biggest downside with this is you don't have the air dash to bail. And it's easy because of how much distance you can get out of the air dash. It's easy to like do that and be so far ahead of your team that they can't like follow up on it. And then you don't have, and then the enemy team collapses on you and you don't have your air dash to peel because you just used it to YOLO in. And so you got one little ground dash, but you didn't do it through an ally. So now you're here and they're just like running you down. And so this is like a riskier play. So definitely consider if you're going to be able to get out or if you're going to be able to just like fully kill before you do this, because this is something that you know you'll realize with practice and with experience that this can easily get you killed, but can also easily get a kill. So it's very like high risk, high reward play. But just like shipping it in, charging the Q while you're in the air, getting that root, and then pumping them while it's charging, and hopefully your team is, you know, following up on that. A lot of times that's like a really nice like guaranteed kill. All right, moving on to our Q, which is the defensive circle, basically our healing circle. So this is like our support circle. This is like our kill circle. So with Moonlight Blessing, summon a healing zone, reactivate to throw. So we press it, and it's got this like, you know, visual, and then after some amount of time, it's gonna pop and proc the heal. So it's basically in this first phase, it's like a heal over time. It's like right here, it's like healing over time, and then see this circle in the animation that's like building outward. When this hits the outer rim, it's going to proc and do like a big like instant heal. So it's like heal over time, and then when the circle fills out, it's going to proc big instant heal. And something that's really important to keep in mind is this heal is 33% effective on ourselves. So this is not a crazy self heal. It is like quite a good team heal, especially if your team is grouped, because you can literally heal yourself and all 4 people together if they're sort of clumped, right? And if we look at the advanced tooltip, heal allies in a radius around you over 2.5 seconds. So this duration is 2.5 seconds with this circle expanding out. And at the 2.5 second mark, we're going to get that proc, and it's going to do this burst of healing at the end. So the other really important part of this is we can throw it. And so if we look at this middle section, reactivate to toss the zone to a target location, it attaches to allies. So if we hit an ally with the circle, it's going to stick to them and like travel with them. And the heal amounts are increased for 1 second after throwing. And so as soon as we toss it, like if we just hold it on ourselves like this, it's going to do, you know, the regular value. But if we toss it, the heals are going to be increased for 1 second. So the trick here, see how it's a 2.5 second charge and the heal amounts are increased for 1 second after throwing. So basically the max value you're going to get out of this heal is holding it for 1.5 seconds and then throwing it within that last second. And that's going to make the heal pop at the end have the bonus from the 1 second after throwing it. You know what I'm saying? So it's like if you throw it too soon, that bonus for 1 second after throwing is going to like expire before the 2.5 seconds and the circle actually like pops, right? So I just like press it and throw it instantly. It's increased for 1 second, but now it's gone already before the big pop at the end, right? So looking at like the actual heal values, like if I press it on myself, see how I'm getting 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6 pop for 109? And that was just holding it without throwing it, right? So now let's pop it and throw it immediately. I'm getting 8, but see how it went from 8 to 6 and still popped for 109? That's because the bonus after throwing it only lasts for a second. So this is like a really sort of underrated Elluna mechanic that you can use to maximize your healing, is anytime you press Q, you want to hold it for a second and a half and then throw it, so that this last second is bonused from the throw, and it includes the big burst at the end. So the end pop has been healing me for 109, right? But if I time it right, and it takes a little bit of patience and a little bit of like, just like her ground dash having like some pretty precise timing, this heal has pretty precise timing too, where if I press it and wait enough time and then throw it, I get 146 at the end instead of 109. And remember, that's 33% effective on myself. So we're going to be getting, 66% more increase like that on like a teammate, right? So in summary, like the proper way to use the heal for maximum healing is pressing it, holding it for just over a second and a half, and then throwing it. And even if you're just healing yourself, you still want to throw it to get that increase we've been talking about for the 1 second at the end, right? And so the throw interaction, basically wherever we put our cursor is where it's going to throw it. And to do a self throw, you can literally just click the ground right in front of you, and it's going to instantly put it back on you and count as thrown. So as long as like you're within the range of the circle when it hits the ground, it's going to like go to whoever's like basically closest to it in the circle and stick to them. And that's the other thing to keep in mind, is you don't have to be like crazy precise with this. Like as long as you can get it, the ally somewhere in that circle, they'll basically like grab it and carry it with them. But just know that like if you're trying to throw to yourself, you can literally just throw right in front of you and it's just gonna like instantly grab it again. Last thing on the Q I forgot to mention that's really important is if whoever the heal is on, like whoever this circle's on, if they get stunned while the circle's on them, it's gonna cancel it. So if you're playing against Elluna and you see her heal, if you're able to CC the heal, it's literally going to stop it, and it's not going to do that big pop at the end. All right, so moving on to our final ability, our ultimate Divine Intervention. It's going to look like this. So basically what this is think of it as a giant heal first, but it's also like a full reset if they're a wisp at the end. So it's like a channeled res, but it's also like massively healing, like while it's resing. So we look at the advanced tooltip: heal an ally or allied wisp for X amount per second for 5 seconds. Wisps will also be resurrected, teleported to you, and healed. So what this means is we channel it for 5 seconds, and at the end of this 5 seconds, if Shrike is a wisp, she's going to get instantly teleported to me and resurrected at full health. So the most obvious way to sort of use this is like on an ally that's already been turned into a wisp, right? Like let's say Shrike is over here and gets knocked, and I can't get over there for whatever reason. I can ult her wisp form from way back here, and as long as I stay in range, so see this big circle? That's like sort of the range of the heal and the res. So it will basically, after the 5 seconds is done channeling, it will pull her wisp to me, bring them back to full health, and like sort of reset them for the fight. But if for some reason we do like break range, it's going to basically just cancel it. And so we're not going to get that like resurrection effect at the end, and it's going to stop the heal. The other thing that's like literally like not mentioned in this tooltip is we get a pretty big move slow when we cast it. So look, I'm down to 345. So basically like 100 move speed we're going to lose from 460, right? And that's like a pretty big deal. It's like, using the res and a sort of taking that move slow does kind of make you a target, because not only are you going to be slowed by a bit, it makes a really like noticeable sound, especially like experienced players are going to know you're rezzing. And it has a huge light beam, that like connects you to your target. And so it's like very, very obvious to the enemy if you're ulting like this. And so you want to be ready as soon as you press it for enemies to try to engage on you. And the other thing that's really important to keep in mind with it is, like, let's say Shrike goes down and the enemy instantly starts stepping on her. I don't have time for this to proc if the enemy's standing on her instantly, right? So let's say Shrike gets knocked, like right now, and the enemy's on her. If I haven't ulted yet, she's going to get stomped before the ult can go off, right? So if you see an enemy like knock an ally and the enemy's already on top of them and they're not leaving the wisp, they're just standing on it, you don't want to do this because it's going to be wasted. Because if they stand on the wisp and kill it before this end goes off, which is 5 seconds, which is a long time, you'll literally just, it'll cancel your ult, you won't get the res through, and they'll get the full kill, and your ally will be in a box. And the way you can kind of avoid that is if you see Shrike going down before she's even a wisp is when you want to do this. Because if you've already started the channel, then the enemy's not going to have time. If they get the finish right there, you're going to get your channel through before they have time to stomp. So basically the way to counter the stomp is to start the channel, like see it before it's going to happen, and start the channel like right before she's going to go down, and that's going to let you get the res through before they have time to go through with that stomp. And we talked about the fact that like pressing it makes you a target and slows you down. Keep in mind that you can use all your other abilities while this is channeling. And so that's like a mistake that I see a lot of like new Ellunas making, is when they channel their ult, they're like pretending like that's the only thing they can be doing. But you can literally do everything else you could normally do while you're channeling the ultimate. So on the train of thought of like ulting an ally and you now becoming a target for the enemy, you can still use your ground dash jump. Just the sort of animation on it isn't there, but you can still do it. And the important thing to keep in mind is like, if you're doing that to try to dodge, like what just happened right there, it's easy to accidentally cancel your ultimate, right? So, you know, you're kind of a target for the enemy right now. You can still use your movement stuff, but you want to be careful not to like air dash yourself out of that range, because that's just going to like cancel the res, right? So if you move out of range, it's going to end the effect. Also, if you're stunned, it's going to end the effect. So not all crowd control, but if you're like hard CC'd, if you're stunned, it's going to end it. And if you are knocked, obviously it's going to end it as well. Now, a subtle thing to keep in mind is this very last part. If a cast completes on a wisp, you heal yourself. So not only can this be used as like a save tool like we've been talking about, it's also like a very powerful like offensive engage tool. So if you have a teammate like a Jewel, a Shiv, someone that's looking to just like a Jhin, a Brawl, someone that's looking to like dive in and delete and get out, like that's kind of like their kit, you know? Those are like perfect champions to basically like pre-ult. So let's say like there's a team over here and me and Shrek are going in. Let's pretend this is like a Jewel or like a Brawl. I basically like want to like be looking at, you know, my most like offensive teammate and giving them the confidence to do their full all in, knowing that I'm literally gonna save them 100% of the time if they fuck it up or if they get like CC'd and die, because in the middle of them going for their kill combo, I'm pre-ulting sort of regardless of what's happening, right? And that's giving them the heal to survive. But if I do it when they're sort of like low and the enemy team is trying to like focus and kill them, you know, as soon as they go down, they're going to instantly pop back up on me. And another shout out to Major Pleasure from his video, like a really smart way to use the R that I hadn't even really thought of, is in that scenario, like where you have a really offensive teammate that you're trying to support. Like let's say this is like a Shiv, she's going in, I like pre-ult her, and she's like about to go down. She's gonna come up right on me, right? So if I know I'm gonna get the res, I want to position myself in a good position for her to kill as soon as she gets res. So they're all chasing her, they're like trying to murder her, they're not paying attention to me. As soon as my channel is about to complete, if I can position myself, like let's say this is like a Jhin, right? If I can position myself like right behind an enemy or close to an enemy, now as soon as my Jhin reses, he's going to have like kill position being like right on top of someone, right? So again, like just talking about this being like a very position oriented character, you can use the positioning of yourself with the ult to bring allies to exactly where you're at, you know, like mid fight. And a lot of times like allies are not or a lot of times enemies are not expecting that at all. All right, now let's take a look at equipment options. So Elluna is really cool because she has like a ton of diversity in what she can build, which I love. I think that's like really cool when champions can like do different looks. However, I think there are a couple that are sort of like a little above and beyond the rest, and I've been like experimenting with quite a few of these, and there's a few I really like for like different situations. So your base setup that you're pretty much like always going to want to go for, not always, but for full offensive, is going to be Mana Blade, Tech Blade. And the recommended here in game is this Bubble Blade, which seems maybe kind of obvious because it shields with healing, right? And then Interweaver. And this is going to make it so anytime we use an ability, our next LMB is going to have this extra little ball on it that does like that 34 damage you saw at the end there. So I do think this is like a good setup, but I don't think this is the best setup. And the reason that is because while this Bubble Blade sounds like it could be or should be really good, your heals apply a shield equal to 25% of that heal. The reality is we're doing like a decent amount of healing on Elluna, but not like a crazy amount, like not like a Zeph amount of healing. And so I really like Bubble Blade on Zeph, because I feel like you can really leverage the value of the shield. But the other thing to keep in mind with shields, guys, is if you know, are healing someone not in combat, like if you shield them and that shield isn't getting hit, the shield is useless because it's going to expire. So like, for example, I have Bubble Blade, I heal myself. See this shield at the end here? If I don't get hit, that shield goes away. So it's gone already, and it did literally nothing. Like, I just got no value out of that shield because I wasn't getting hit while it was active. It's not full healing. It's a shield. It's a temporary shield that's fairly short. So it's not the equivalent of more healing. It's the equivalent of like more combat healing. So if I'm using it in combat and I'm getting hit while that shield is active, now it's value, right? But just understand that like shields are different than heals, and in order for them to be valuable, the heal has to be happening in combat, and that shield has to actually be like getting hit to soak any sort of damage and be like the equivalent to healing, right? And so shields outright are not just like, you know, super good. They're like really good situationally, and especially to like extend the value of your combat heals, right? And my personal opinion with Elluna is she doesn't have enough healing. Like the cooldown on our Q is sort of too long a lot of the time to fully maximize the value of Bubble Blade. Like really the main way you're gonna like get value out of this is if you get like one big team heal while your team's like already sort of low, and you get everyone at the same time and they're continuing pushing forward and the enemy's shooting back and all their shields get chunked in the next like 4 or 5 seconds. But besides that scenario, you know, I just don't think you're going to get a ton of value out of Bubble Blade because your heals aren't quite big enough for that 25% to matter a ton. And on top of that, we have like a pretty long cooldown on our main heal, and the only other thing that heals is our ult. And so like we're only going to get the value of Bubble Blade every 10 seconds, and it's only going to be valuable if we're healing allies in combat and they get hit within the next like 3 to 5 seconds to actually consume the shield value, right? So that's sort of my argument against Bubble Blade, and the reason I'm making this argument is because I personally think Mind Blade is better on Elluna. And the reason that is because it's going to give us a bigger base mana pool as we evolve it into Apotheosis. So this one, basically, if you hit 10 abilities on enemies, as soon as you do that, it's going to transform into Apotheosis, and that's basically going to give you like 100 extra mana, and it's going to bring this extra AP up to like 16. And so this item turned into Apotheosis is giving us like 196 ability power and more like 205 max mana. And by the way, guys, the actual value of our heal scales off of our ability power. So we're actually going to get a bigger heal out of Mind Blade because of the 16 extra ability power. I only have 8 on this one because I haven't evolved it yet. Than we are out of Bubble Blade. And the biggest downside with Mind Blade, guys, is we're going to have to hit our root 10 times to evolve it. And actually, after testing it, if we hit the root and it procs, it's actually going to give us a stack for each of those. So we actually only have to hit 5 roots, and this is going to evolve into Apotheosis. See how it gave me 1 stack for hitting her and then another stack when the root actually procced? So you basically have to land 5 full roots for this thing to evolve into Apotheosis, which is not too hard. I think if you're a newer player and you're wanting to just get immediate value out of your Mana Blade without having to evolve it, then I think Bubble Blade makes sense. But if you're starting to get a bit more experience on Elluna or like higher elo, Mind Blade's going to give us more value because bigger mana pool, and the AP is not only going to scale our LMB and the damage of all of our abilities, it's also going to scale the value of the heal itself. And so it's going to basically do what the shielding is doing, except it's going to be permanent healing instead of like this temporary shielding, right? We can see transforming it into Apotheosis, I'm actually going to get 196 ability power out of it instead of like the 180 we're getting on Bubble Blade. And I have basically a similar argument against Interweaver where I think it's decent, but I don't think you're using enough abilities in between your autos to get proper value out of this. So my preferred setup is the same items, Mana Blade, Tech Blade, just going Mind Blade and evolving it into Apotheosis, combined with Tech Blade into Amplifier. And when we take Amplifier, and Amplifier is just kind of insane on everyone in my opinion. Like any champion whose abilities are important, Amplifier is like really good on. And even if you're not using the multiple stack thing, literally just the extra 5% ability haste from the 1 stack that's always active is good in my opinion. And basically, so like as soon as we use an ability, we get this stack, right? Now if we use the same ability again, it's going to stack again, and it's going to keep stacking as long as we use the same ability. As soon as we use another ability, and every one of these stacks is giving us an extra 5% CDR, right? So at 10 stacks, that's 50% extra CDR. which is just bonkers. But if we use a different ability, it's going to reset it to 1 stack. So basically, because of how important the dash is to Elluna's kit, and especially using this ground dash we've been talking about, where we can, basically get a big amount of momentum out of it, you can see it's already at a low cooldown with 1 stack, but if we start to do it multiple times in a row, we're just going to start getting like an insane cooldown reduction on this shift. And by the way, not only is it applying to the ground shift, it's also applying to the air shift, right? So we can see that it just went from like 9 to 4 seconds instantly because it's benefiting from almost 50% CDR because I've been doing the ground hop a lot. So basically, like especially for the amount of like movement you're doing on Elluna, even if you're weaving your other abilities, you're going to be getting big value on your dash cooldown from Amplifier. We can see fully stacked. I can literally do it constantly. Like this is just crazy style movement. So if you're not needing to heal and if you're not needing to throw your root, which is like quite often, you can just get essentially permanent dash movement with Amplifier. And that, this is like without even dashing through allies or anything. Like that same effect where you get like an instant reset when you dash through allies, you can get almost the same exact thing without dashing through allies from like Amplifier. And again, like if you jump and dash, like you get the short cooldown on that. So with a fully stacked Amplifier, if we're not needing to heal or throw our root, we're constantly ground dashing. Every 4 seconds, we can weave an air dash and then bunny hop that at the end. So it's like ground dash into an air dash into a B hop, and then our ground dash is back up, and then our ground dash is back up, and then our air dash is back up into a B hop, and then our ground dash is back up. And I see people like, interested in Quick Blade and using Grace or Turbo Booster. And I think these are like decent, but I don't think they're quite as valuable as what we were just looking at. And the main reason I say that is because of how much of our movement is dashing. Like we're literally, like what I just showed with Amplifier, we're dashing literally constantly, especially if we have Amplifier stacked. And anytime you're dashing, your movement speed like literally doesn't matter. Like your dash momentum is independent from like the actual movement speed of your character on the ground. And so like if we take Turbo Booster, it like sounds cool in theory, like gain 50 decaying movement speed for 2 seconds, right? But if we're doing proper Schmovement on Elluna, like the speed boost is literally like almost gone by the time we hit the ground. So we're getting like only a tiny bit of value at the end of our dash from it. And we're getting literally like no value with it out of our air dash if we B-hop at the end, because literally by the time we land from the B-hop, like the turbo boost is gone. So the only time this really has value is if you're not leveraging the Schmovement Tech of the ground dash. And so you get the speed boost at the end. But if you're dashing properly and you're jumping at the end, the speed boost is basically gone by the time you land, so you don't need it. And I think if you do want to run Quick Blade, like a better option is Grace, because of the fact that we can heal and we're at full health a lot of the time. So this is just going to give us like 50 move speed extra like all the time. And, I think this is good, but again, I don't think it's as good as constantly dashing with Amplifier. So if you were going to run Grace, you'd basically want to replace Amplifier with it. Because basically what you're saying is instead of continuously dashing to move, I'm going to be running to move. So I want this extra movement speed, right? But if we're doing the dash thing, like this extra 50 movement speed is not going to matter like most of the time because we're getting all of our movement from our dash and our dash momentum. So those are like the full AP looks. There's also like 2 hybrid looks with Elluna that I think are like really strong and cool. And so one of them is like full healer. And so this one, we're going to go Bubble Blade and we're going to go Tech Helm into Soulbound. And this is like if you're wanting to play like super healer Elluna, because this basically, what this lets you do is like, if you're playing more like behind your team, you can provide, that like shielding value we talked about if you're healing with proper timing and like healing during combat to where those shields are actually getting hit and giving you value. But if you're kind of playing back, you can really maximize the value of this. See this 1 second cooldown on Moonlight's Blessing every time you dash through allies. So if you're kind of playing more like support Elluna and you are like dashing through allies, that's going to basically every dash through. Like if I have 3 allies here, if I do this and cross through all of them, that's 3 second reduction on my Q, right? And so we're looking to like really heal spam, Q spam, be super like protective, supportive Elluna. I really like this setup because we can, try to lean more into the Q value. And then if we hit multiple people with the Q, it's going to boost the value of the shields. And then this is like a really cool item on Elluna because in general, we're like not the ones in there getting hit. And so we can basically put this on like whoever our best on our tank, or whoever like our best like engager is, like whatever character on our team we're trying to support with our ultimate as they go in, like we talked about, like that's probably who we're going to want to soulbound. And basically this is just going to make it so we like share some of our damage with them. And this has like really good synergy with the fact that we have an AoE heal. So like imagine I'm taking some percentage of Shrike's damage, like 25%, like let's say she's on my team, right? And I'm taking 25% of her damage. If I just have a single target heal, you know, that's going to heal the damage she's taking, but not the damage I'm sharing. The 25% I'm sharing, like I'm not going to heal that. But since I have an AoE heal, you know, it's literally if I'm taking 25% of our damage, I'm going to leverage more value out of healing multiple people because I'm splitting that damage up between targets, if that makes sense. So that's like full support Elluna. And then basically, if you want to be invincible Elluna, there's a really cool setup you can do where you go Tech Blade and into Amplifier, and then Tech Helmet into Vive Infuser. And what this is going to do is give us that crazy dash cooldown reduction we already looked at, where as we're dashing, we're going to be building amplifier stacks, and dash already being on a short cooldown, like an air dash being on a separate cooldown, we're going to be able to build that really fast, right? And because we're now taking the tech helmet along with the tech blade, we already have another 18% base in here. So we're getting like really strong ability haste between both of these put together combined with the stacks. And this makes it so every time we dash, we heal instantly 3%, and we heal 3% more over time. And so it's like, this is literally like, I'm going to always survive and get away Elluna. If you want to be like invincible peel Elluna, and like always be able to like get out and live, this is like a really fun one to play. And I think this one's like a little more forgiving for like beginner Ellunas. And the biggest downside with it is you don't have a mana item. And so if you're running this option, you're going to be wanting to look to like mana power. So like Touch of Mana, Delicate Mana Battery, you know, different things that can basically like support your ability to generate mana. And we can look at Mana Battery, like if we grab it, it's like really crazy amount of mana. Like Mana Battery, especially like on Elluna, because of the fact that we can heal ourselves and be at full health a lot of the time, like Mana Battery is going to literally completely solve your mana issues with this build. And by the way, while you're dashing with Vive Infuser, that's also healing you. So if for some reason you're not at full health while you're dashing to get away, you're going to quickly go to full health, and then your Mana Battery is going to kick in. And so these three together, Amplifier, Vive Infuser, Mana Battery, really strong. If you can't get Mana Battery, or you don't have access to mana powers, you want to build the Meditation Boots, the Mana Boots. And that's going to make it so you can like get out of combat and just sit and regenerate. And so same idea, like if you're using this build to like run and stay topped off and constantly get away, as soon as you are running out of mana, like, we can see we can get quite a few dashes in before we go but as soon as you are kind of like getting low on mana, you can like find a bush or a quick corner and just chill for a second, and you literally need like 3 or 4 seconds and you'll be back at full mana just by standing still and taking a quick break with the meditation boots. I think in general, if you're not going this setup, like all the other setups we've been talking about, you want to go chain jump boots. Because of sort of how much she's leveraging jumping with her Schmovement Tech, the fact that we're jumping after the ground dash, so chain boots are going to help with that. And they're actually going to give us even more distance on the long dash, because if we jump higher initially, we're going to be able to get further out of that air dash, and then we're going to jump again when we hit the ground for the B-hop momentum, right? So chain jump boots just have like really good synergy on Elluna. And in my opinion, like the only time to not take chain jump boots is like if you have a setup like this double tech setup without a mana item, and then you want to probably take the meditation boots, unless you get some crazy mana powers and are confident you're not going to die and lose them. So in summary of everything we just talked about for Elluna builds, if you're skipping to this section and you want like my logic behind this, listen to that section that just happened. But basically, in summary, what I think is best on Elluna is going to be Mana Blade, Tech Blade. And if you're a beginner, I recommend Bubble Blade. If you're more advanced and getting better on Elluna, I recommend Mind Blade. So you want to go Mind Blade into Amplifier. So that's like the full AP look with Amplifier and either Bubble Blade or Mind Blade. And then your a really good hybrid setup is going to be, there's 2 of them basically. There's like full healer mode. So that one's going to be Bubble Blade into Soulbound, and this is going to let you tether to an ally, share damage, get extra value because the damage you're taking from them splits the damage up, so your AoE heal has more value because you're going to be able to, you know, basically heal multiple people that are splitting damage with one spell. And then the other hybrid look that's like one of my favorites that's just like incredibly fun to play is Tech Blade Tech Helmet. And we're going to go Amplifier and then Vive Infuser. And the only problem with this build is the mana, so we don't have a mana item, but we're doubling up on ability haste, and we have Amplifier stacking ability cooldown reduction, and this Vive Infuser is now going to heal us 3% every time we dash with another 3% hot after we dash. And so the biggest problem with this build is mana, so you're going to want to switch your chain jump boots to meditation boots, and that's going to give you the mana regen, so you just need to like find a bush or a corner if you're low and wait like still for like 3 seconds, and the meditation boots will bring you back to full. A better way to do it, if you can manage to get something like a delicate mana battery, is because Vive Infuser, while we're dashing, is going to be basically keeping us at full health with that heal. Delicate mana battery has like crazy synergy with this setup because at full health we gain mana regen, and the mana regen is like cuckoo bonkers. Like it's literally just so much mana regen you like can't go no matter how hard you try. It's like permanent full mana basically. All right, so that's equipment. This again has already been like a longer one because Elluna has like a much deeper kit than what's on the surface, like I mentioned at the beginning. So we're just gonna like show some what I think are like strong outright powers for Lunar real quick, but I really encourage you guys to just keep trying a bunch of different powers, try different combos, try unique stuff, see what feels good on Elluna specifically. And I'm just going to show you some ones that are kind of just like outright strong. We already talked about mana battery as just being really strong with Elluna because of the fact that we can heal ourselves and be at full health. That's like a way to essentially have like completely infinite mana for the most part. I think the touch spells are really good on Elluna, so like touch of mana, touch of speed, or the touch of healing. I think are all really good. Touch of Life are all really good on Elluna because of the fact that a lot of times we're playing around our teammates, the fact that we get the dash reset by dashing through teammates, and the fact that we get a cooldown reduction on our heal when we dash through teammates. Every time we do that dash now, we're going to be touching them with the touch spells, so either mana, speed, or health if we take the life one, right? So I think all three of these are really strong for her. Another one that's really strong outright is health packs, because in our whole, you know, jump combo we've been doing, we can throw a pack down and blast off it and just get that extra verticality that the pack gives us, right? And then it also gives us another healing tool, and this has 2 charges. So we can also like basically have more heals for our teammates beyond just our big Q if we have bandages, but then we can also use them for the boost. Like if I threw that out and a teammate didn't take it, I can like, you know, do this boost off of it or do the air dash boost off of it. So Abyss Specialist is just like health packs, like on its own, extremely strong on Elluna because of how good she is at fighting out over the Abyss. So what Abyss Specialist does is reset the cooldown of your first movement ability used while over the Abyss. So with Abyss Specialist, if we jump off a ledge with our ground Schmovement Tech, we get an air dash, we get another free air dash, and then our ground dash is refreshed too. So you can just go an absolutely insane amount of distance over the Abyss without gliding. Just like with Abyss Specialist alone, right? It literally lets you like double up on your dashes over the Abyss, not just once, but twice, because we have 2 separate dash cooldowns. And I didn't talk about this a ton, but like Elluna is an absolute menace over the Abyss, guys. So one of the things that makes this character like crazy good is when you are like trying to reset fights or like running away, she's exceptionally good at like baiting enemies out over the Abyss, like forcing them to glide and then spiking them. Because even without Abyss Specialist, she just has like a crazy amount of time to sort of like operate out here and like bait other champions into doing dumb stuff like following her and then like just crushing them, you know, with the spike. And like I didn't even do it fully valued there because I had my dashes up way sooner, but you can literally just hang out, especially like when you're getting to lower dash cooldowns, like if you're running an amplifier setup, you can just, you know, literally just hang out here like for so freaking long, man. It's actually wild. And this is like no powers, anything special, you know. This is just with our build, and that's the disadvantage of running out of mana like mid fight there, and that's like why we'd want to take delicate mana battery or mana boots with this specific setup where we're double ability haste. And you know, with Abyss Specialist and wings, like this makes it so we're getting the resets from Abyss Specialist, so we get the 2 dashes right off the bat, and then we still have our glider, and then at the end of all that, you know, we're still dashing, we're still gliding, we're still dashing, we're still gliding, And like sort of when we're maybe finally out of everything, we can literally like wings and just go back and we're fine. Crazy champion out over the abyss. So like one of my favorite defensive combos on like a lot of different characters are Air Blast Sandwall, and this basically gives us self peel to like blast people away that are on top of us, and then it gives us like ranged projectile protection against strike bullets, like anything range that you need like momentary protection against, either as your team's trying to push or if you're just trying to peel for yourself. I think these two in combo just have like a really good synergy for like defensive, peeling, because you can basically like peel melee with Air Blast and like defend yourself against range attacks so that you can't dodge with Sandwall. Very last one on Elluna I have to mention is Guardian Angel. This one might seem like it has like a little bit of like overlap or like anti-synergy because she's already kind of doing this with her backpack, but this basically makes it so if you mess your Soulpack up and if this shield gets broken and the ally gets knocked out of you, they'll continue rezzing. And in addition to that, the bonus revive speed is also really valuable. So if you're doing a lot of picking your team up, and if you're having to go into sketchy situations in order to do that, and that's resulting in like your backpack shield getting broken and you dropping people on your way out, like Guardian Angel is a really good way to like, as soon as they get dropped, they're still rezzing right there. Like it hasn't gotten, it hasn't gotten fully stopped. They just dropped out of your pack. So let's say you have them at like 70% rezzed, and they're going even faster from Guardian Angel. If that shield gets broken and they get knocked out, like the enemy has to like instantly react and stand on them. Otherwise, they're going to just still like res and be right next to them at full health, like ready to fight again, right? Boom. And that is our beginner's guide for Elluna. So I hope that was useful. I hope that was valuable. That was a little longer than I thought it was going to be. Elluna just has sort of like a deceptively deep kit where it looks simple on the surface, but there's like a lot more going on and a lot more to master. So I hope this sort of like, maybe opened your eyes a little bit to the like mechanical ceiling of what she might be able to do. Because I think she does have like a very high sort of skill cap. It's just very unique compared to the other champions. So this is our 7th of the hunters. I think there's 16 right now, so we're coming close to halfway through. I'm going to just keep pumping on these for you guys, and I got a couple extra mechanics videos for some useful stuff that are going to be coming out as well over the next few days. So thank you so much for watching. Remember to take care of yourself and keep vibing. Catch you in the next one. Peace.